Greyrat family members ranked from weakest to strongest. Starting at the bottom of the list, the weakest member of the Greyrat family is Lilia. The only combat ability and swordsmanship style Lilia ever learned was the water god style. Her father was actually the former owner of a water god style dojo, and he originally intended for Lilia to become one of the instructors. However, Lilia simply didn't have the talent required to become a great swordsman. She only managed to reach the intermediate rank in the water god style, which was nowhere near enough to become an instructor, let alone inherit the dojo. Because of this, her father planned to pass the dojo down to Paul instead, as Paul showed incredible talent with the sword. Unfortunately, Paul ran away after sleeping with his daughter. So, why is Lilia considered the weakest member of the family? First, her water god style is only at the intermediate rank. On top of that, Lilia cannot use magic at all and has very limited combat experience. In fact, the only major battle she ever fought left her with a permanent injury. While serving as a guard maid at the Silver Palace in the Asura Kingdom, Lilia protected Princess Ariel during an assassination attempt. During the attack, an assassin struck her leg with a poison-coated dagger. Thankfully, she survived after receiving treatment, but the poison permanently damaged her leg. The injury left her unable to run at full speed, stomp with her full strength, or properly perform many of the techniques of the water god style. Combined with her lack of magic and limited combat experience, that makes Lilia the weakest member of the Greyrat family. The next weakest member is Aisha. Aisha is actually incredibly talented. If she had chosen to dedicate herself to swordsmanship, magic, or combat in general, she could have become an exceptional fighter. However, in the current timeline, Aisha never seriously pursues any of those paths. Even so, she still reached the beginner rank in the water god style and attained the beginner rank in all 6 foundational types of magic. These consist of the 4 offensive elements: water, fire, wind, and earth, along with healing and detoxification magic. Since she had already learned all 6 foundational types of magic at the beginner rank, she wasn't required to attend Ranoa Magic Academy after passing the entrance exam. However, this also became one of her biggest weaknesses. Since she never pushed herself any further, she never fully developed her talents or gained meaningful combat experience. Compared to the other members of the Greyrat family, Aisha simply lacks real fighting experience. Next is Zenith. Now, this placement might come as a surprise. After all, Zenith was an S-rank adventurer and has extensive experience fighting monsters. However, it's important to remember that she earned that rank as part of a team, not as a solo adventurer. More importantly, Zenith was never an offensive mage. Her specialty has always been healing, which is where her true talent lies. Her fire and water magic are believed to be at the beginner rank, while both her healing and detoxification magic reach the intermediate rank. Her proficiency in the remaining magic elements is unknown. Zenith also isn't a swordsman. Throughout her time as an adventurer, she primarily served as the party's healer rather than an active frontline combatant. During battles against monsters, she relied heavily on the other members of her party, especially Paul, to protect her while she provided support from the rear. Because of that, Zenith's S-rank adventurer status doesn't necessarily reflect her individual combat ability. While she was undoubtedly an invaluable member of the Fangs of the Black Wolf, her role was that of a support mage rather than a fighter capable of standing on her own. For that reason, despite her experience as an S-rank adventurer, Zenith ranks below Christina and Norn in terms of individual combat ability. Next is Christina. Now, some people might argue that Christina should actually be the weakest member of the Greyrat family. And honestly, among her siblings, that's true. Christina is the least skilled in combat. She only reached the beginner rank in the sword god style, and although Roxy taught her magic, her exact rank in each magic element remains unknown. That's mainly because Christina simply has no interest in becoming a fighter. However, we also have to remember that she inherited Aerys blood. She has also demonstrated that she can more than hold her own in a fight. When Christina enrolled at Asura Academy, she completely overwhelmed and beat down troublesome noble students who tried to mess with her and her friends. Even though her swordsmanship is mediocre and her magical ability is largely unknown, Christina has shown that she can rely on her natural strength and instincts to handle herself in a fight. For that reason, despite her lack of formal combat training, Christina still ranks above Zenith, Aisha, and Lilia. Next is Norn. When it comes to combat, Norn surprisingly ranks above Aisha, even though Aisha surpasses her in almost every other aspect. After Paul's death, Norn's motivation to become stronger increased dramatically. She even asked Rudius to personally train her in swordsmanship, dedicating herself completely to improving her skills. Eventually, under Aerys' guidance, she reached the intermediate rank in the sword god style. Unlike Aisha, Norn also has real combat experience. One notable example took place at Ranoa Magic Academy, where Norn, Cliff, and the rest of the student council had to exterminate wraiths and skeletons hiding in the school's underground storage area. During the mission, Norn calmly led the formation and gave precise orders to the other students. She even used healing magic to treat Cliff's injuries. While her exact rank in healing magic is unknown, this suggests she had at least reached the beginner rank. Although Norn should technically be capable of using Toki, her lack of natural talent ultimately limits her growth. Because of this, she was never able to progress beyond the intermediate rank in the sword god style. For those reasons, Norn ranks above Christina, Zenith, Aisha, and Lilia in terms of combat ability. Next is Lily. Wait, who's Lily? According to one of Rifugen's blog posts, Lily is estimated to be somewhere between the advanced and saint levels. However, he never clarified whether that assessment referred to her swordsmanship, magic, or overall combat ability. Either way, those levels are far above the average fighter in the six-faced world, making Lily significantly stronger than that named Luke. Lily also continued her father's research on the magic armor, aiming to complete the general-purpose magic armor and make it accessible for ordinary people to use. Even if Lily may not excel in swordsmanship or magic alone, using the magic armor would greatly enhance her combat ability. As a result, she could become far stronger than she would be through her own abilities alone. For now, however, she remains in this position in the ranking. The next member on the list is Paul. Now, this placement might be even more controversial than Lily's. While some people might think Lily is ranked to high, others will argue that Paul deserves to be much higher. Paul devoted himself entirely to swordsmanship. What made him exceptional was his mastery of all three major sword styles: the sword god style, the water god style, and the north god style. Remarkably, he reached the advanced rank in all three. As the swordsman of the Fangs of the Black Wolf, Paul was one of the members who carried the party alongside Ghislaine. There's no denying that one of the biggest reasons the party eventually reached S rank was because of Paul's contribution. He also accumulated extensive real combat experience throughout his years as an adventurer, constantly fighting monsters across the six-faced world. However, when compared to the stronger members of the Greyrat family, Paul begins to fall behind. Rudius is simply in a league of his own, while Roxy surpasses Paul in adventuring experience and is also a great mage. Aerys eventually reached the king rank in the sword god style, placing her above Paul in swordsmanship. In fact, Rudius himself once remarked that Aerys' swordsmanship during their journey across the demon continent had already become comparable to, or perhaps even stronger than, Paul's. Despite mastering all three sword styles, Paul was permanently stuck at the advanced rank. Ghislaine herself once stated that Paul would never be able to advance beyond the advanced rank in the sword god style. The main reason is that Paul is an instinctive swordsman. He relies on talent, reflexes, and intuition rather than understanding the theory behind his techniques. Because of that, Paul couldn't continue improving. To reach the next level, he needed to analyze and understand his swordsmanship more logically instead of relying purely on instinct. Without making that change, he simply couldn't progress any further. There's also the issue of fighting powerful mages. Ghislaine herself noted that Rudius could defeat her at distances of over 100 meters. If even a king-ranked swordsman like her would struggle at that range, Paul, whose swordsmanship remained at the advanced rank, would be at an even greater disadvantage against powerful mages like Rudius, Roxy, and Silfie. For those reasons, while Paul is undoubtedly an outstanding swordsman, he ultimately ranks below the Greyrat family's strongest fighters. Next is Silfie. Silfie gained extensive combat experience while serving as Princess Ariel's bodyguard. During that time, she defeated countless assassins and was the one who handled most of the actual fighting to protect Ariel, while Luke was just busy being a When it comes to magic, Silfie's achievements are exceptional. At Ranoa Magic Academy, students are generally considered qualified to graduate once they reach the beginner rank in all 6 foundational types of magic. After that, they usually choose one primary element and focus on raising it to the advanced rank. Only a handful of students ever reach the advanced rank or higher. Most remain at the intermediate rank even after specializing in a single element. Silfie, however, reached the advanced rank in wind, earth, healing, and detoxification magic, as well as the king rank in water magic. Fire magic is the only element in which she remained at the intermediate rank, likely because of the trauma she experienced during childhood. Silfie can also use voiceless incantation, allowing her to cast magic without chanting. She can even perform healing magic without chanting, something that not even Rudius has been able to master. While serving as Ariel's bodyguard, Silfie became widely known as Silent Fits. She also managed to defeat Christina and Lilia simultaneously by herself. Having trained under Rudius from an early age, Silfie developed an enormous monopole that far exceeds that of ordinary magicians. However, it still isn't as vast as Rudius, whose mana capacity is exceptionally large thanks to both his early training and the Laplace factor. While she may not have as much experience as Roxy, who is capable of casting more powerful king-tier spells, Silfie is still considered one of the strongest magicians. Her chantless healing magic also makes her an exceptionally valuable support mage on the battlefield, giving her a level of versatility that very few magicians can match. Next is Roxy. Among all members of the Greyrat family, Roxy is arguably the most experienced. Having spent decades traveling across the six-faced world, she has fought monsters, explored dangerous regions, and taken on quests that most magicians would never attempt. That overwhelming amount of real-world experience is one of the biggest reasons she ranks above Silfie. While Silfie possesses a larger monopole and can cast spells without chanting, Roxy makes up for that difference with decades of experience, superior battlefield judgment, and a much deeper understanding of advanced magic. Roxy reached the Saint rank in fire magic, the King rank in water magic, the advanced rank in earth, wind, and healing magic, and the intermediate rank in detoxification magic. Unlike Silfie and Rudius, Roxy cannot use voiceless incantation. Instead, she uses chanting omission, allowing her to shorten many incantations and cast spells much more quickly. Roxy has also demonstrated remarkable survival instincts and resilience. One notable example was when she survived for weeks inside the teleportation labyrinth. Although she would have eventually died if Rudius hadn't rescued her, surviving alone in one of the world's deadliest labyrinths for that long is an incredible feat in itself. One of Roxy's few weaknesses is her mana pool. Unlike Rudius and Silfie, she doesn't possess an exceptionally large mana pool. Casting a single King Tier spell consumes a tremendous amount of mana, making it impossible for her to repeatedly cast King Tier spells during a prolonged battle. Even so, Roxy remains one of the most powerful magicians. Her name is well known among adventurers and highly respected at Ranoa Magic Academy. One of her greatest feats took place while she and Rudius were assisting Zanoba in defending the Sharon Kingdom against an invasion from a northern nation. Together, they unleashed wave after wave of devastating AoE lightning magic, wiping out well over 1,000 enemy soldiers. Next is Lara. Most of Rudius' children are exceptionally gifted, and Lara is no exception. She is believed to be the Doldia tribe's long-awaited chosen one. It was prophesied that she would become an important figure in the future and the tribe's destined savior. That is why the sacred beast, Leo, always remains by her side, recognizing her as the one from the prophecy. Even Hidogami fears Lara. Through his foresight, he saw that she would eventually assist Orsted in defeating him, making her one of the greatest threats to his existence. Like most of Rudius' children, Lara can use voiceless incantation. Refugine once mentioned in a blog post that Lara falls somewhere between the advanced and saint levels, although he never specified whether he was referring to her overall combat ability, swordsmanship, or magic. Since Lara primarily identifies herself as a mage, it's reasonable to assume her magical ability is closer to the upper end of that estimate, even though her exact ranks remain unknown. The novels also demonstrate just how dangerous Lara can be. She could defeat Aerys before he could even draw his sword, using her magic so quickly that he wouldn't even realize the fight had already begun. As the novel states, even if she wasn't good at direct confrontation, she would fulfill the victory conditions before it even got to that point. That was Lara, only if she initiates the attack first. Lara, along with Lucy, also won the majority of their sparring matches against their siblings. However, Lara rarely fought seriously and often held herself back. Unlike most people, Lara disliked following traditional teachings and instead preferred experimenting with entirely new forms of magic. She began researching types of magic that went beyond conventional attack and healing spells, magic that couldn't even be categorized under the existing magic system. In addition to her combat abilities, Lara inherited the Migurd's telepathic abilities. However, her telepathy appears to be even more unusual, as she can communicate with Leo, Beat, and Zenith, who also possesses telepathic abilities due to her Miko powers. Lara also studied divination magic and summoning magic, neither of which belongs to the foundational 6. She also appears to possess some form of foresight, although exactly how that ability works remains unknown. Despite all of these extraordinary abilities, Lara remains in this position because much of what makes her so feared is tied to prophecy and her future role rather than her current accomplishments. While she clearly possesses immense potential, there simply aren't enough on-screen combat feats to justify ranking her any higher, at least for now. Next is Lucy. Among all of Rudius' children, Lucy is often regarded as the most gifted and talented overall. Excelling in both swordsmanship and magic, she is arguably the most well-rounded fighter among her siblings. Lucy was also highly motivated to earn her father's recognition. Because of that, she constantly pushed herself to improve in every aspect, especially combat. Refugine has made a similar remark about Lucy, placing her somewhere between the advanced and saint levels without specifying whether he meant her overall combat ability, swordsmanship, or magic. Just like her siblings, she is also capable of using voiceless incantation, including chantless healing magic. In battle, Lucy seamlessly combines swordsmanship and magic. She enhances her movements with wind magic, creating shockwaves that alter her trajectory mid-fight while allowing her to parry, evade, counterattack, and cast spells with remarkable precision. As a result, her fighting style is both graceful and incredibly difficult to predict. One of the best examples of her skill was her victory over Aerys. By combining her swordsmanship with magic, she was able to outmaneuver and defeat him. Even after they grew older and Aerys became much stronger, he continued to praise Lucy's exceptional combat ability. The novels also consistently portray Lucy as the most naturally gifted among Rudius' children. Combined with her relentless dedication to training, that talent allowed her to become one of the Greyrat family's most formidable fighters. However, much like Lara, Lucy ultimately lacks enough real combat feats. Although the novels repeatedly emphasize her extraordinary talent, there simply aren't enough on-screen battles to justify ranking her any higher. Before we continue, many of you are probably wondering why Lucy and Lara are ranked so high, especially since I've placed so much emphasis on combat experience throughout this ranking. Well, here's the thing. The world of Mushoku Tensei is one where swordsmen have traditionally dominated, especially before Rudius completely changed the standards for magicians. Rudius' children, however, belong to a completely different generation. From a very young age, they were personally taught magic by Roxy and swordsmanship by Aerys. Because of that, they received training from some of the finest swordsmen and magicians in the world, so it's no surprise they naturally grew into monsters themselves. Unlike most fighters, they aren't limited to mastering just one discipline. They seamlessly combine swordsmanship and magic in combat, making them far more versatile than the previous generation. So even if some of them don't have many real combat feats yet, they were clearly meant to surpass the previous generation in terms of talent and overall potential. That said, experience still matters. In fact, it's one of the biggest reasons I didn't place Lucy or Lara at the very top of this ranking. Despite Lucy being regarded as the most gifted among Rudius children and Lara being the prophesied chosen one, neither has accumulated enough real combat experience to justify ranking them above the strongest members of the Greyrat family. Next is Aerys. Now we're entering the absolute elite of the Greyrat family. Throughout her life, Aerys trained under some of the greatest warriors in the world. Ghislaine first taught her the fundamentals of the sword god style, while Rudius introduced her to magic, allowing her to reach the beginner rank in fire magic. During their journey across the demon continent, Rudius sharpened her battlefield instincts and taught her how to survive in real combat. Later, Galfarian refined her sword god style even further, while Abair introduced her to the North god style. As a result, Aerys mastered a wide variety of techniques and abilities. Among them was the Long Sword of Light, the ultimate technique of the sword god style. Although magic was never her specialty, she also learned to cast Fireball thanks to Rudius. From Rudius, she inherited Bloodlust, a super technique that overwhelms opponents with murderous intent, making them feel as though they are facing a monster. She also learned Presence Search, allowing her to detect the presence of others by remaining completely still and sensing sound, her surroundings, and even the flow of mana. During her training at the Sword Sanctum, she eventually learned to control her bloodlust, making it especially effective against practitioners of the Water God style. Aerys eventually reached the rank of Sword King. Among Sword God style practitioners, only a handful of swordsmen ever attained that rank. However, that title hardly reflects her true strength. By the end of the series, her actual swordsmanship had already grown beyond what most people would expect from a typical Sword King, yet Aerys never cared much about rank or status. She became widely known by the nicknames Mad Dog and Berserker, perfectly reflecting her ferocious fighting style. In reality, that reputation had already begun to spread during her journey across the demon continent. Overall, Aerys combines overwhelming physical strength, incredible speed, exceptional endurance, and remarkable agility. She is capable of fighting multiple opponents regardless of their swordsmanship rank, while her acrobatic movements and ability to leap more than twice her own height make her an incredibly difficult opponent to predict. Although Aerys learned both the Sword God style and the North God style, her personality made her fundamentally incompatible with the Water God style. Ironically, however, her swordsmanship eventually evolved to incorporate many of its principles, something even Ars noticed. The traditional Sword God style emphasizes ending a battle with a single decisive strike, with the Long Sword of Light serving as its ultimate expression. Aerys eventually developed a different philosophy. Rather than assuming every attack would land, she always anticipated the possibility that her opponent might dodge or counter, especially against Water God style practitioners. Because of that, her defense became just as refined as her offense. She controls her movements with remarkable precision, quickly recovering even after committing to an attack. Her fighting style became far more patient and sustainable than that of a typical Sword God practitioner. While it shares similarities with the Water God style through its careful positioning, timing, and last-second parries, Aerys remains relentlessly aggressive, turning every successful defense into an immediate counterattack without relying on provocation. And that's without even mentioning the countless feats she accomplished throughout the series. One of the greatest examples was when she managed to sever one of Orsted's arms during battle, an accomplishment very few swordsmen could ever hope to achieve. Overall, Aerys stands among the strongest members of the Greyrat family and undoubtedly ranks as one of the greatest swordsmen of her generation. Next is Ars. From a very young age, Aerys trained Ars intensely in swordsmanship, and he absorbed everything she taught him with incredible speed. He also received magical instruction from Roxy, although he only became truly interested in magic after witnessing his sister Lucy defeat him in a sparring match with her elegant combination of swordsmanship and magic. From that point on, Ars began seriously studying wind magic. After the incident involving Aisha and his first defeat against his mother, Aerys, Ars became determined to grow stronger so that he could stand beside Aisha and become worthy of her. He devoted himself to even harsher training, constantly refining his skills, tactics, and techniques. Ars also carefully observed many of the world's greatest swordsmen, including Gino, Nina, Isote, Ghislaine, Alec, and Sander. Rather than simply admiring them, he studied their movements and incorporated the principles he learned into his own fighting style. Eventually, Ars reached the rank of Sword Saint, while his wind magic advanced to the Saint rank as well. He combined both disciplines into a unique hybrid fighting style. Unlike Lucy, who frequently uses offensive magic directly, Ars primarily fights with his sword while using magic to enhance his combat performance. Over time, he developed a style that combined the Sword God style, taijutsu, and chantless magic. He could even create magical traps that activated without incantations, making his fighting style extremely unpredictable and difficult to counter. One of R's greatest innovations was the way he used wind magic to generate shockwaves that enhanced his speed, mobility, and stability during combat. He originally learned the concept from Lucy but gradually refined it into something far more effective. The shockwaves not only improved his movement and footwork but also disrupted his opponent's balance and timing. By combining Lucy's wind magic techniques with Aerys' unconventional sword god style, which had evolved to incorporate aspects of the water god style, Ars forged a combat style that was completely his own. The longer he fought, the harder it became for his opponents to keep up with his movements. Eventually, very few swordsmen could challenge him on equal footing. At the end of his training, Ars challenged Aerys once again. Defeating her was incredibly difficult, and many of his shockwave techniques were countered. Nevertheless, Ars ultimately won their second match and even managed to sever one of her arms during the battle. He would later succeed Rudius as Orsted's right-hand man. Through countless battles and the unique nature of his fighting style, people began calling him the Wind God. Although he officially remained a sword saint, this was largely because he had freely incorporated his own concepts into the sword god style, causing many traditional practitioners to reject his style. He was never formally recognized as the sword god, but Orsted himself considered Ars' actual skill to be comparable to that of a god-tier swordsman. Even though Ars never became one of the 7 great powers and never received an official god-ranked title, he earned recognition from the strongest being in the world himself, Orsted. Next is Sieg, Heart Salad, and Greyrat. Sieg is the second member of the Greyrat family to eventually become one of the 7 great powers. From the moment he was born, Sieg displayed extraordinary physical abilities. As an infant, he accidentally broke one of Rudius' fingers and even left bruises on Silfie simply from being carried. His physical endurance was equally astonishing. While barely a month old, his parents brought him across the harsh divine continent to receive Perugia's baptism. Even adults found the journey difficult, yet Sieg endured it without suffering the illnesses that would normally affect an infant. Much of this is attributed to the Laplace factor, which granted him not only his distinctive green hair but also an extraordinarily powerful physique. During childhood sparring sessions, Sieg often lost to Lara, Lucy, and Ars. However, he was also the youngest of the group. Even so, there were occasions when he managed to defeat Ars, although Ars himself considered those victories close enough that he didn't view them as definitive defeats. At one point, Sieg boldly declared that he would become the strongest swordsman in the world. Ars dismissed the claim, telling him that he had no right to call himself the strongest until he could truly defeat him. From that moment on, Sieg vowed that one day he would defeat Ars. Sieg learned both the sword god style and the North god style. Like many North god style practitioners, he made full use of every advantage available to him, including magic. He could use voiceless incantation and frequently incorporated magic into his swordsmanship to outmaneuver his opponents. His healing magic reached the advanced rank, while the ranks of his other forms of magic remain unknown. Roxy taught Sieg magic, while Aerys taught him the sword god style. Later, after meeting Alexander, also known as North god Kelman III, Sieg asked to become his disciple. Under Alexander's guidance, he mastered the North god style at an astonishing pace, reaching the rank of North King at just 15 years old and later advancing to North Emperor by the age of 19. Beyond swordsmanship, Alexander also taught Sieg techniques such as stealth, tracking, infiltration, and surprise attacks. Sieg eventually expanded upon those teachings by creating techniques of his own. During the period in which he struggled to find his purpose after graduating from the Asura Royal Academy, Sieg adopted the alter ego of the Moonlight Knight, acting as a mysterious nighttime hero. During that time, he developed several signature techniques, including Moonlight Punch, Moonlight Kick, Moonlight Serenade, and Moonlight Split, an upward sword slash powerful enough to generate twin tornadoes capable of demolishing buildings. Although Sieg eventually abandoned the Moonlight Knight identity, he continued using those techniques, likely under different names. Later in life, Sieg helped his best friend, Pox Jr., establish an independent nation within the wastelands of the Dragon King Kingdom, serving as his right-hand man. Throughout countless battles and military campaigns, his strength continued to grow. Eventually, Sieg earned his place among the 7 great powers, reaching the 5th position under the title of Death God. He also became widely known as the witness to 1,000 battles. In one of the Christmas side stories, Sieg successfully defeated Rudius. Afterward, Rudius acknowledged Sieg as the strongest among all of his children. The Redundancy light novels also state that Sieg would eventually become known as the strongest swordsman on the central continent. Combined with the events of Jobless Oblige and the heavy foreshadowing of a future battle between Sieg and Ars, it strongly suggests that Sieg ultimately surpassed his older brother. Finally, we have the strongest member of the Greyrat family, Rudius Greyrat. From the moment he was reincarnated into the 6-faced world, Rudius possessed an enormous monopole thanks to the Laplace factor. By training relentlessly from early childhood, he expanded that mana even further until it eventually reached a level comparable to Laplace's. Rudius also retained the knowledge of his previous life. His understanding of science, logic, and fantasy concepts allowed him to view magic from an entirely different perspective. This breakthrough eventually led him to master voiceless incantation, a technique he later passed on to Silfie, ultimately influencing the next generation of the Greyrat family. From childhood onward, Rudius trained under many extraordinary mentors. Roxy laid the foundation of his magic, allowing him to reach Saint rank in water magic at an incredibly young age. Paul and later Ghislaine taught him the fundamentals of swordsmanship, while Rudius sharpened his battlefield instincts and survival skills during their journey across the demon continent. Later, Kisharika granted him the demon eye of foresight, allowing him to glimpse an opponent's future movements. With the help of Zanoba and Cliff, he also developed the magic armor MK armor. After eventually joining Orsted, Rudius continued training under the Dragon God, further refining his combat abilities. When it comes to swordsmanship, Rudius reached the intermediate rank in the Sword God style and the beginner rank in both the Water God style and the North God style. However, he could never advance further because progressing beyond those ranks requires Toki, Battle Aura, something he is fundamentally incapable of using due to his Laplace factor. Rather than seeing this as a limitation, Rudius compensated for his inability to use Toki by developing the Magic Armor series alongside Zanoba and Cliff. The armor converts his immense mana into physical power, dramatically enhancing his strength, speed, and durability. Throughout his life, he created several versions for different purposes. The MK1 was a massive 3-meter tall suit whose combat ability rivaled the 7 great powers. The smaller MK2 sacrificed power for far greater efficiency and everyday practicality. The MK0 became his strongest armor, serving as his ultimate weapon at the cost of tremendous mana consumption. Finally, the MK3 combined much of the MK0's power with the MK2's efficiency and later became the foundation for the mass-produced general-purpose magic armor. When it comes to magic, Rudius stands among the greatest magicians in history. He reached Emperor rank in water magic and Saint rank in fire, earth, wind, healing, and detoxification magic. He also mastered barrier magic, one of the advanced branches outside the foundational 6. Although he never mastered chantless healing or detoxification magic, every other spell in his arsenal could be cast instantly without incantations. His arsenal includes powerful spells such as Stone Cannon, Lightning, Blizzard Storm, Sandstorm, Quagmire, and countless others. He also developed many original techniques, including Electric, Disturb Magic, and even the unofficial God-class spell Nuclear Explosion, which Orsted himself acknowledged had reached the realm of God-class magic. However, Rudius' greatest weapon isn't his magic, it's his mind. Rudius possesses one of the highest battle IQs in the entire series. Rather than relying solely on raw power, he constantly analyzed his opponents, exploited weaknesses, adapted to changing situations, and devised strategies that maximized his advantages. His knowledge from his previous life allowed him to approach magic and combat from a perspective no one else in the six-faced world could. His intelligence repeatedly allowed him to overcome seemingly impossible battles. During his duel with Paul, he cleverly trapped Paul's leg to limit his movement. Later, he devised the strategy that allowed his party to defeat the Hydra, proving that careful planning could be just as important as raw power. One of the greatest examples of Rudius' tactical brilliance came during his battle against Orsted. Fully aware that defeating the Dragon God in a fair fight was nearly impossible, Rudius spent months preparing an elaborate ambush designed to kill him. Although Orsted ultimately survived and won the battle, he was forced to expend an enormous amount of mana, placing him at a significant disadvantage due to his slow mana recovery. Even Orsted admitted afterward that he never wanted to fight Rudius again. After becoming Orsted's subordinate, Rudius refined his combat style even further. His combat style revolves around controlling the flow of battle through positioning, crowd control, prediction, and devastating finishing attacks. He frequently opens with Quagmire to restrict movement before following up with Electric, Frost Nova, Deep Mist, or Stone Cannon depending on the situation. Combined with the magic armor and his demon eye of foresight, this made him one of the most terrifying opponents in the world. His destructive power is equally overwhelming. Rudius possesses enough magical power to destroy an entire city if he truly wished. His large-scale spells, including Nuclear Explosion, Cumulonimbus, and other King-class techniques, are capable of annihilating enormous numbers of enemies. One of the clearest demonstrations occurred during the war in the Sharon Kingdom. While assisting Zanoba in defending the kingdom, Rudius and Roxy unleashed wave after wave of devastating area of effect magic, annihilating thousands of enemy soldiers and leaving the battlefield completely devastated. Fortunately, Rudius never abused that level of power. His alternate self from the Dark Timeline showed exactly what would happen if he abandoned his humanity. That version of Rudius destroyed the capital of Asura with large-scale fire magic, massacring countless civilians without hesitation and continuing to slaughter anyone who stood in his way. Fortunately, the original timeline never followed that tragic course. Perhaps one of Rudius' greatest accomplishments wasn't simply becoming one of the strongest magicians in history, it was changing how the world viewed magicians altogether. Before meeting Rudius, Ghislaine believed mages were nearly useless in close combat because they required lengthy incantations to cast powerful spells. Rudius completely shattered that belief. With voiceless incantation, instantaneous spellcasting, exceptional mobility, and brilliant tactical thinking, he proved that a magician could not only survive against elite swordsmen but even defeat them. Ghislaine herself admitted that if she fought Rudius from more than 100 meters away, she might lose. Through innovations such as the magic armor, his revolutionary combat style, and his influence on the next generation, Rudius permanently changed the standards of magic in the six-faced world. Throughout his life, Rudius accomplished countless incredible feats. One of his greatest achievements was forcing Ørsted to acknowledge him as one of the most troublesome opponents he had ever faced. In fact, Ørsted admitted that fighting Rudius again in the same loop would consume so much mana that it could jeopardize his eventual battle against Hidogami. Despite all of that power, Rudius rarely fought his family with lethal intent. That is why characters like Aerys or Sieg were occasionally able to defeat him in sparring matches. Those results should never be interpreted as proof that they had surpassed him in an actual life-or-death battle. After defeating North God Kelman III, Rudius eventually became one of the 7 great powers, taking the 7th seat under the title Quagmire. For all of those reasons, there is no debate. Rudius Greyrat is, without question, the strongest member of the Greyrat family.